Good morning and welcome to Unity Connect Online. My name is Dan Holme. I'm the co-founder of IT Unity, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to our first keynote, The Future of SharePoint, Office 365, and the IT Pro. I am excited to be joined by Senior Technical Product Manager Bill Baer, who's on the SharePoint product team. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. Wonderful to chat with you again. And the goal of this session is really to give you, Bill, a chance to share with us, the community, Microsoft's vision of the future, where you guys are going, where these products are going, and then for you and I to have a chance to really talk tech and to talk candidly about how these changes impact the business and the decisions that we have to make as customers of Microsoft. So why don't we kick off with you and tell us a little bit about what's going on and where you're going. Let's switch into that layout here.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
It's all
I can
yours,
see
Bill.
my slides. So, absolutely. So before we talk a little bit about the direction, the future, the vision as we move forward with SharePoint and Office 365, one of the things that I like to generally lead in with was, what does this new cloud, what I call revolution or evolution, mean to IT professionals and developers as we move forward? So as you think about SharePoint as we move forward, and as we've been in the past, you've noticed that there's been a lot of momentum around SharePoint Online and Office 365, which is, to a certain extent, really diluted the message around SharePoint on premises. So we get a lot of questions about, what are you doing with SharePoint as you move forward, particularly in the service as a component of Office 365, as well as on premises, and where do you see these two technologies, while having a common base, converge? And what does it mean if I'm an IT professional that's accustomed to working with SharePoint on premises historically? How do I transition my skill set to the cloud? What does this cloud revolution mean to me from an IT professional perspective? So let's go ahead and just start with that conversation initially. So from a cloud perspective, if you think about where we're at today, looking at the current calendar year, most sources cite about a 35% of IT expenditures in the enterprise are going to be managed outside of the IT department's budget. And then if you think about longer term research moving forward, you'll also find in the next 5 to 6 years, really the consensus is that the cloud's going to represent a resounding 30% of all IT spending in the near future as we move forward. So the cloud is here, and the cloud is here to stay. And we shouldn't look at the cloud as purely Office 365 or SharePoint Online. It represents a number of different things. It represents infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So all of that complexity of choice and direction introduces for IT what can be perceived as a disruptive force. But really what the cloud opportunity is, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or even software as a service, it enables businesses and individuals to secure technology on their own, which leads to the largest challenge for IT. However, the cloud shouldn't be viewed as a challenge as much as it should be viewed as an opportunity, regardless of where our customers opt to deploy SharePoint moving forward. So today, as either an IT professional or a developer, you're definitely being asked to do more than ever. You're being asked to drive strategic business processes, leading a transformation to new business outcomes, reducing cost, increasing revenue, advancing innovation, a number of different things, including delivering innovative new user experiences. And today, what the cloud has led in many cases is the rise of rogue applications and shadow IT. So for organizations, they often find themselves with security and compliance vulnerabilities, perhaps inconsistent systems, policies, and administration. Maybe they have conflicting SLAs, procurement contracts, billing arrangements. There may be a lack of visibility, control of systems and costs, or fewer economies of scale. So there's a number of different challenges that IT is facing as part of this new cloud revolution. So as an IT or a developer today, you are now uniquely positioned to demonstrate how you can overcome these challenges. So it's about moving forward from being system administrators who are reactively responding to the needs of the environments, perhaps installing cumulative updates or service packs, and in turn becoming a value-added service broker. So it's really about proactively responding to the needs of your users for those environments that you support, as opposed to supporting those environments themselves. So that's really where we see the shift for IT from a value perspective. So when you have that question as related to where should I be taking my career as an IT professional, it's really shifting from being proactive in terms of managing the systems that you own and being proactive in terms of providing value to the users who leverage those systems you used to manage. So it's really putting the user at the forefront of what you do. And with that said, again, the cloud is often perceived as a disruptive force, as it's enabled businesses and individuals to secure that technology on their own, as I said earlier. And what it's also done is it's really ushered in that bring your own device era. So while that disruption can be real or perceived, depending on what side you're on, there's definitely that opportunity for you to become an enabler. And though pressures are going to continue to exist that ask you to do more, to drive those business processes, to reduce cost, to advance innovation, at the same time delivering new and compelling user experiences, really the way to think about the cloud is it uniquely positions you to meet those demands. So again, I couldn't state it in any other way. It's really the role of IT in the past has been reactive relationship to the environments that you support, and now it's an opportunity to transition to the cloud to become a proactive force and add value to your organization. So from a SharePoint perspective, as we think about the cloud and we think about the products moving forward, the key things to understand is, one, the cloud is here, and it's going to cause you to raise a number of different questions. What does it mean for my IT strategy? What does it mean for SharePoint? For what particular scenarios should I be using the cloud as I move forward with SharePoint? And really to understand how SharePoint fits into this picture, it's important to take a look back to understand how to look forward. So if you think about SharePoint, it's always evolved in response to changing industry trends, even on premises as well as in the cloud. In early 2001, we introduced SharePoint Portal Server, where our emphasis was really on intranet portals and collaboration. And then we carried forward and advanced those capabilities in SharePoint Portal Server 2003, while SIM shipping our first cloud offering, which was Microsoft Managed Solutions. So for many people, they haven't realized that we've actually been in the cloud with SharePoint for well over a decade now, starting with Microsoft Managed Solutions. And then in late 2006, we introduced SharePoint Server 2007, which combined the capabilities of Content Management Server 2002 and SharePoint Portal Server 2003. At that particular point in time, the emphasis was on core content management scenarios, and we also introduced Microsoft Online Services, effectively its predecessor being MMS and Office 365's predecessor. And then as we moved forward in 2009, we obviously launched SharePoint Portal Server 2010, which coincided with a change in the industry that was driven by the rise of internet-connected scenarios and more transparent collaboration. So really the result of the shift was SharePoint Server 2013. And in that particular release, we really doubled down on cloud and enterprise social. And when we launched SharePoint 2013 in November of 2012, we really had a vision of which cloud and on-premises would converge through parity and through unique technology investments that differentiated SharePoint from other collaborative platforms. And if you think about hybrid as we introduced it in 2013, it's really representative of those early investments, those investments that were driven by convergence of cloud and enterprise computing on premises. And then as we moved through 2013, we delivered a number of different cumulative updates and introduced different ways that you can consume SharePoint, namely in Windows Azure. So there's an example coming back to that strategic evolution of the IT professional where infrastructure as a service really came to the forefront from a SharePoint perspective. And then finally in early 2014, just prior to the 2014 SharePoint conference for 2013, we shipped Service Pack 1. So we made some additive investments as they're related to cloud coexistence. So we introduced the capability to more seamlessly integrate Yammer into your navigation experience, or experiences such as OneDrive for business redirection, so really bringing in those hybrid scenarios. And now as we look forward, we face another challenge. So today, cloud cloud computing has gone mainstream. So it's opened up new scenarios and opportunities. And we're taking full advantage of those with SharePoint 2016, investing in what we like to call cloud-inspired experiences. So as we look at it from a SharePoint perspective, with 2016 and how we've really looked at the cloud, basically what 2016 represents is really the product of a converged SharePoint on-premises and SharePoint Online code base. So effectively what we've done is we've converged code bases from SharePoint Online and SharePoint on-premises to deliver one discrete product, whether you're running in the cloud or you're running on-premises. And it provided us really, and it provides you, three core advantages. One, it's a consistent code base, which means improved build quality, and it also closes the parity gap between SharePoint and SharePoint Online. Number two, it's cloud validated. And cloud validated means that it's going to be the most comprehensively tested version of SharePoint to date. And then lastly, the other benefit that we see is the third benefit is really agile infrastructure. So there's no need to set up and maintain on-premises equipment for new or special projects since enterprise data can be accessed in the cloud. And by that, what that means is we've got a new compelling set of hybrid scenarios that we're introducing in SharePoint Server 2016 that we'll talk about. So the question at this point in time becomes, what is SharePoint? You have SharePoint Online and you have SharePoint on-premises. If you think about what on-premises is, it's really representative of a server product, where the server is a container that encapsulates a set of features. A great example of a feature is enterprise search. Features are then, in turn, indirectly provided to information workers. So if you think about enterprise search again as an example, it's indirectly accessed through a search center, where enterprise search is actually controlled by IT. So in that case, just to reiterate, we have enterprise search as a component of SharePoint provided as a feature. Information workers indirectly interact with enterprise search through a search center, whereas IT directly controls enterprise search and its configuration. Now, if you think about what that means from a cloud perspective, SharePoint Online is also a server product, but it encompasses experiences. So in this case, in the cloud, SharePoint Online is a server product that experiences are derived from. A great example is the Office Graph in Delve. Its foundation, the Office Graph in Delve, is in SharePoint Online. So SharePoint Online provides the base to deliver those experiences. Experiences, conversely, are directly provided to information workers versus features which are indirectly provided. So in this example, if we look at Delve as an experience, Delve is indirectly accessed by end users. The Office Graph, which powers Delve, is abstract and not accessible by information workers or IT professionals. And where we see hybrid as part of this picture, it's a way through which we can take features and experiences and connect them to provide additive value to on-premises. So that's really what we're thinking as we move forward from a SharePoint perspective. So if you think about our server product on-premises, again, it's a container that encapsulates a set of features. In the cloud, features or experiences, as we like to call them, are derived from SharePoint Online, and they're indirectly provided to our information workers. So really the way we think about hybrid is how can we take features and experiences and connect them to add value to on-premises. So if you think about our hybrid vision and strategy as we move forward, it's less about content migration scenarios and more about bringing value from the cloud to your on-premises investments. So if you're a customer leveraging enterprise content management or records management on-premises with SharePoint Server as features, you can add value through experiences such as Delve and the Office Graph, or data loss prevention, or business intelligence, and then sprinkle that on top of your existing enterprise implementation on-premises. So it's really about bringing the experiences to on-premises to enhance features as opposed to bringing your data to Office 365. So that's one of the key shifts that we see from a hybrid perspective that uniquely pulls these two products together. As we look forward, it's also important to reflect on where we've been, who we are, and then where we're going. So when we first started this SharePoint journey, it was really all about a document collaboration scenarios within team sites. And then over time, as the product evolved, we added additional capabilities such as portals, search, business intelligence, enterprise content management. And across experiences, we also added a common management layer, which was really about giving control for our customers of those experiences and enabling concepts like user permissioning. We then made SharePoint an extensible platform. So really we invested in extensibility. So it was enhancing those out-of-the-box features, building solutions, integrating with other technologies. Perhaps it was business connectivity to derive content from a third-party line of business system. And all of these common experiences, management, and extensibility scenarios really became the core aspects of what people love about SharePoint. And then as we take SharePoint forward, these three aspects continue to be central to where we want to invest, both within the server as well as across Office 365 as a component of SharePoint Online. So really what the cloud has enabled us to do as we move forward is it's bringing those experiences, the management, and extensibility together across Office technologies. So if you think of what SharePoint Server has represented in the past, it's represented a suite of capabilities that were tightly integrated and coupled through that server product. Office 365 is really the new suite experience that pulls all of these products together, whether it's Exchange, SharePoint, business intelligence, or real-time communications through Skype. The cloud has also allowed us to get new innovations to our customers faster, really to iterate more quickly and then continuously improve. However, for many of our customers that are running SharePoint on-prem within the firewall, the way we see that is bringing that capability down through hybrid deployments. That's why we're making this next version of SharePoint the most secure, scalable, and reliable version, and really thinking about those cloud investments and how we accrue them back to our on-premises and customers. So by making it easier to take advantage of cloud innovation through hybrid, we're also making it easier to just integrate with the cloud when our customers are ready to do so. So if you think about what SharePoint has evolved into over the course of the past 3 years, it's really evolved in the cloud with Office 365 initially, focusing on those same core aspects of experiences, management, and extensibility that exist now across Office 365. But that doesn't mean we're not going to continue to invest on our on-premises product as well as hybrid. So in addition to those traditional SharePoint capabilities, we're also going to deliver a great platform to build upon and more targeted user experiences. And those experiences, whether they're on-premises or in Office 365, we're really designing to be more collaborative, more mobile, and more social. And at the same time, we're also designing a number of those capabilities to just be ready to go, to be able to offer your users shorter time to value and less cost to actually build and maintain your SharePoint scenarios moving forward. So while SharePoint and SharePoint Online deliver features and experiences differently, hybrid is really what binds these two together. When we started that hybrid journey, our investments were largely designed in response to migration challenges, specifically those that would allow our customers to rationalize two discrete silos of information. So during that migration phase, you would have content stored in team sites on premises and team sites in SharePoint Online, or perhaps content stored in My Sites or OneDrive for Business on premises, or in OneDrive for Business in Office 365. And our early hybrid investments were really a way to help you rationalize those two distinct data silos with a single pane of glass through hybrid search or query federation. As we move forward with our hybrid scenarios, really what we did is took a step back and tried to understand instead where hybrid can maximize the value that SharePoint provides to you on premises. So as opposed to looking at it as a way to facilitate migration, really looking at it as a way to enhance features, again, delivered by SharePoint on premises with experiences that are delivered by Office 365. So that's really the direction that we wanted to take it moving forward. So really making it less a component of migration and more a component of moving things forward. For IT, managing this new distributed architecture through hybrid, we see occurring through a set of commons. So from a commons perspective, we're really investing in drawing parity between the management scenarios, which is PowerShell that exists both on premises and in Office 365, through central administration and tenant administration, pulling these experiences together to where you have a more consistent management experience across the two. Really then looking at identity and security and pulling those experiences together. So today you have Windows Server admin tools, you have ADFS, you have directory synchronization, remote desktop, and really trying to find a way that we can bind together identity and security commons, and then lastly moving on to management tools. So as we continue to think more and more about hybrid and how we can enhance features with experiences, we also haven't forgotten that you need a consistent way to manage those experiences as well. So at the end of the day, from a SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint Online perspective, we'll continue to innovate in the cloud at a very rapid cadence with SharePoint Online. And we'll continue to innovate on premises on a traditional release cadence of 2 to 3 years. And the way that we see that additive value of those rapid cloud investments coming back to on-premises is really through this unique new set of hybrid scenarios, or better phrased as now cloud-connected scenarios, where you can bring value to on-premises by subscribing to cloud capability. So if we go back to that question, what does the cloud mean? The cloud is here. What does it mean for my IT strategy? What does it mean for SharePoint? And how should I use it? It basically means you're able to enhance your existing on-prem deployments with speed, scale, and innovation on demand. And that's really where we see our hybrid investments coming in, to enhance the speed and performance of your existing SharePoint capabilities because we have invested in this agile infrastructure, the ability to scale on demand by bursting into Office 365, and lastly by delivering innovation to your on-prem investments by subscribing to new cloud-connected scenarios. So really with that opening it as context, what does that mean as we think about SharePoint 2016? So if we think about that, when we thought about SharePoint 2016, we really looked across 3 core pillars of value. Improved user experiences that are familiar and intuitive, that are designed for how people work today. So a cloud-inspired infrastructure that brings our experience to your data center, and people-centric compliance that puts data protection at the hands of the information workers. So with those in place, we invested in these 3 primary areas. The experience portion is all about blending social and collaboration with discovery and real-time intelligent access to information that are powered by experiences such as the Office Graph. And that's one of the investments that we talked about at Ignite, is bringing the power of the graph and the power of Delve to our on-premises customers through our new hybrid investments. And we're making that available not only for SharePoint Server 2016, but we're also making it available to our customers of SharePoint Server 2013 with an update we'll ship later this year. On the infrastructure side, it effectively means our investments will enable you to put the experience and the power of what we think of thousands of servers into a single box. So effectively taking all of that experience that we've been able to garner from running SharePoint at scale and taking that documentation and putting it into code. So in the past, best practices around managing SharePoint environments, from deployment through upgrade and just day-to-day operations, all of those best practices were delivered to you as documentation through TechNet or MSDN. And now that we've had the experience of running SharePoint at scale, we were able to take all of those documented best practices and bake them into code, which means you get better performance and reliability. You'll get a new set of support and monitoring tools that let you maintain your 2016 deployment with the same confidence that we do SharePoint Online. And one example of that we talked about recently is zero downtime patching. So we've updated all of our upgraders to run as online operations, which means now you can just deploy your updates much like we would as a component of the service without incurring any downtime. And then lastly, on the compliance side, whether you're on premises or in the cloud, or even somewhere in between through hybrid, we'll have new data loss prevention and monitoring tools that are built on the foundation of Office 365 Trust with discrete scenarios such as e-discovery across on-premises and the cloud, document fingerprinting, data loss prevention, item-level encryption. A number of those different investments accrue back to our on-premises customers as we've been able to deliver those experiences in Office 365. So taking a deeper look into experiences, what are some of those experiences we endeavor to deliver? We'll have a new files experience that integrates Exchange Server, so you can leverage attachments from email, so the concept of modern attachments, which we discussed at Ignite. Native integration of Project Server is another example of how we're bringing project and portfolio management closer to the content that project managers create. Document conversations that are powered by Yammer from a cloud accelerated experience. We're also going to improve the mobile browsing experience across mobile devices as well. So that's one of those key experiences that we see. So when we talk about cloud first, mobile first, that also accrues back to our on-premises customers. On the infrastructure side, we have a number of different investments that we're making that, again, are driven by what we've been able to learn running SharePoint as a component of Office 365. So we have a new streamlined topology that reduces your data center footprint. So effectively, we've moved on to a role-based installation model to where you can identify and define a server role. Each server role's code paths are optimized for that particular role. So a web front end is optimized for fast performance. An application server, in this sense, our code paths would be optimized for high scalability. And then lastly, on the search side, we also have a search role. So we've really optimized the code paths to be isolated and discretely containerized to provide those search services. You're going to find faster page load performance and site collection creation through some new concepts that we're introducing that effectively just create templates of given sites and copy a site from one portion of a table to another. Bandwidth utilization will be optimized through new investments in bits as opposed to Cobalt as we did in the past. And now you can update and patch SharePoint Server again online with no downtime. On the availability side, we're going to support a lot of the next SQL Server 2016 investments, so the enhanced always-on availability groups, and support for Windows Server 2016 as well. On the connected hybrid scenarios, obviously one of the ones we've talked about is really bringing in the Office Graph and Delve to our on-premises customers through hybrid. You'll now be able to follow documents, sites, and people across both on-premises and Office 365. So for those of you leveraging OneDrive for Business, you'll be able to follow sites and documents and leverage concepts such as site folders that span your investments in both on-premises and Office 365. New extranet scenarios with integration in Office 365 will be available through connected hybrid scenarios, as well as new data loss prevention scenarios as well that we'll bring through hybrid. So from a security and compliance perspective, that's really what leads us there. You'll have quicker insights into your topologies as we're introducing some new advanced and integrated telemetry options for operational maintenance. You'll be able to discover sensitive content via eDiscovery in place in SharePoint 2016, in addition to new sensitive information types. So we'll have unique classification IDs we'll deliver as part of our eDiscovery investments, as well as integrated reporting across both cloud and on-premises content. On data loss prevention and just securing your data, we'll support transparent queryable encryption with the next generation of SQL Server. We'll have built-in and cloud-connected compliance, security, and threat protection tools for both administrators and end users, and those will also be available from a hybrid perspective. And then also on hybrid, again, we didn't think of hybrid as just a way to, as a means to facilitate migration, but really a means to deliver value again, to your on-premises deployment. So one of those would be centralized policy management, really the concept of bringing the unified compliance console to your on-premises content. So effectively synchronizing on-premises in the cloud through the unified compliance console, which brings a number of different things such as document fingerprinting, item-level encryption, and advanced reporting around how your content is being used. So with that said, as just an introduction, you know, one of my favorite quotes is that of Alan Watts, which is really the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. And today we're in a world of change. We're in a world where we innovate very rapidly in Office 365, across Exchange, across Skype for Business, and across SharePoint Online. And you see different experiences evolving as the result of those investments. So next generation portals, Delve in the Office Graph, video, they're all representative of experiences that we've derived from SharePoint Online. And we'll continue to derive experiences from SharePoint Online as we move forward. But the way we look at it is with on-premises, we want to deliver an agile server that's highly tested, that is scalable, that's reliable, that can take advantage of these new experiences as we deliver them in Office 365. So with that, I'd like to bring Dan back into the conversation.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was an awesome presentation. Definitely liked the information. Thought it was super valuable, and actually, I saw some big changes even in the messaging since Ignite. You guys have been working hard.
Yeah, thanks, indeed. And one of the things that we obviously haven't forgotten is we have a number of our customers today that for the foreseeable future will remain on premises for a variety of different reasons. It could be data sensitivity concerns. It could be corporate or regulatory compliance. It could be a significant investment in customization that's just not ready yet to be ported to an app model that is ready for the cloud. So as we think about on-premises, we definitely want to deliver value to those customers who for the foreseeable future can't move. And then we have a set of customers who also are ready to move, and they're just trying to figure out strategically what that means. And it's really about trying to draw a way to connect those two experiences. So for the customers ready to move, our new hybrid scenarios are a way to take advantage of cloud experiences without having to work through a data migration process. And it's just leveraging those new capabilities. So effectively, you can almost think of it as subscribing to a workload in Office 365 through innovation. So workload as a service could be one of the ways that you think about it. And then again, for our on-premises customers that'll be there for the foreseeable future, we want to continue to deliver value to those customers as well. And then for those customers that are ready to make the move to Office 365, we've been investing in new migration scenarios as well to improve performance and reliability from a data movement perspective. So it's a really exciting time actually to be in the SharePoint space as we double down and take our product forward.
Well, fantastic. Well, let's switch into discussion mode here, and let's dive into some of those areas more deeply. So during this portion of the presentation, folks, we're going to have an opportunity to chat with Bill live on camera, so we can see us both here. We're going to spin up our cameras. Hopefully mine will spin up as well. All right. Morning, Bill.
Good morning.
Guess it's appropriate that you're up there, first because you're the guru, and second because you're up north and I'm down south here, closer to the equator. Yeah. So, all right. So, welcome. It's great to see you. So in this portion of the presentation, I'm going to chat with Bill about some of the questions that I know we all have on our mind about Office 365, SharePoint, what it means to us and to our organizations and our careers. I've got some questions prepared, but we will also be taking questions from the chat. So if you've got questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will call them into the discussion and pass them on to Bill. And Bill, let's start by just sort of stepping through the journey that you talked about technologically and look at where people are with certain technologies and where they're going and what their roadblocks are. So let's start with the platform that probably most of us have in place on-prem right now, which is SharePoint 2013. I'm sure there's a number of people who are still using previous versions of SharePoint, but it seems to me that most people are well on their way to upgrading and migrating to SharePoint 2013. What's the experience and the feedback you're getting from customers?
From a customer perspective, we have a number of different customers that are, looking to make that journey from earlier versions of SharePoint to 2013. I think as we think about this cloud evolution, and I like to say that cloud is really the new black, and customers are trying to figure out how do I take advantage of the cloud as I move forward strategically from a business perspective. And I think one thing that drives customers to SharePoint 2013 is it's really representative of the first product that we built explicitly to take advantage of new hybrid scenarios. So that's really when we started to think about how do we enable these customers to take the journey with us in the most seamless and efficient means possible. And that's where we started to think about hybrid. So many customers are looking at 2013 as not only an on-premises upgrade, but really as a cloud-ready upgrade. And that's the way we like to think about it too, is SharePoint 2013 positions you well to start taking advantage of capabilities that we've delivered in Office 365. Search is an example of which, or OneDrive for Business is an example of which. Those two things that you can explicitly take advantage of as you begin to make the journey to 2013. But even further beyond that, what we see a number of customers doing is really making that step to 2013 to position themselves for 2016. So it's not as much about wanting to take the experience of 2013 as their end game, but really looking at 2013 as a temporary position to put themselves ready for 2016. So that's kind of what we're seeing. So we don't necessarily today see customers moving to 2013 really to take advantage of its value as much as we see them looking to take advantage of 2016 and putting themselves in a position either to be ready for 2016 or just to be ready for cloud ready.
Very cool. And so I assume you're finding most customers are at least off of the extreme legacy versions of SharePoint 2007 and earlier at this point, now that support has ended for those products.
Yeah, and it'll be time before many customers can move. So for customers that remain on 2007, and there are customers on 2007, there's actually customers still on 2001 and 2003. But in many cases, they're looking at their environments, and a lot of times those environments are highly customized, and it's challenging to move those. Perhaps they've taken investments in third-party customizations that were never ported for 2010 or 2013. So they're really trying to figure out the right way to move forward. If you think towards those legacy products, I think most of the momentum is really driven towards the cloud as opposed to the next generation of SharePoint. So for customers that are on 2007, they want to take advantage of innovation very quickly, and the easiest way for them to move forward is really to move to the cloud as opposed to working through 3 separate upgrades to prepare themselves, for 2016 and beyond. It's easier from those cases to look at it as data migration. So it's kind of the path of least resistance, and where do you want to be if you're on a legacy version of SharePoint. Obviously, the path of least resistance if you're on 2003 and you want to get up to a modern platform is to look at it as a migration to Office 365 or even a migration directly to 2016. So, those customers tend to not look at moving forward with SharePoint as upgrades, but moving forward with SharePoint as data migration.
Oh, that makes great sense. And for those folks who are going to have some 2013 footprints in their organizations for at least the foreseeable future, what features are going to be added to SharePoint 2013? I know there have been some announcements already about new capabilities that one would have expected would have been held off and held as a carrot for the next version, but actually are going to get baked into 2013.
Yeah, and I think the biggest one of everything that we're trying to do for 2013 is really the new hybrid search investments that we're making. And the way to think about what that investment looks like is we're going to ship an update to 2013 that really enables you to take advantage of a new search scenario that unifies your on-prem index in SharePoint Online. So effectively, you now have one unified index in SharePoint Online, which means from a search perspective, you can not only filter that content as one entity, but you can refine it as an entity, and it provides just a more unified view of information across Office 365 and SharePoint. In the past, our hybrid investments in 2013 were built around query federation. So effectively, a user would create a query, submit that query, which would then be sent to the on-premises index as well as the online index, and you would get 2 separate result blocks back. But those were 2 distinct entities that you couldn't refine as a unit. So if you had a distributed information architecture and information was related in a given way, that didn't come through as part of the search experience because they were treated as 2 discrete sets of results. And now with the new unified index approach, not only can you minimize your data center footprint by leveraging search as a service in Office 365, but you get that discovery that's representative of one set of content as opposed to 2 discrete sets of content. And then the value add piece, and the piece I think most people are most excited about, is that it brings the power of Delve and the Office Graph back to you through hybrid, which means you can leverage predictive analytics now and machine learning across your on-premises content and expose that to your users via Delve. And that's kind of one of those things from an evolutionary perspective. So early on in the presentation, we talked about features versus experiences. So SharePoint Server on-premises today, if you're running SharePoint 2013, has a feature. That feature is Enterprise Search, and you interact with that feature through an Enterprise Search Center. And now with these new investments in hybrid that we're going to accrue back to 2013, that means you can bring an experience back to enhance those features. And that experience is Delve in the Office graph. So when we talk about the evolution of SharePoint as we had in the past, we talked about how enterprise search evolves into a new user-centric experience called Delve. And now what we're doing is enabling you to enhance your enterprise search experiences, with something like Delve. So it's, taking a feature and then additively bringing in innovation such as the Office graph and Delve. So that's going to be a great thing to be able to bring back to SharePoint 2013.
Wonderful. Well, some people, the chat room's already alive with questions about SharePoint 2016 and Office 365, so let's move quickly to that. You mentioned that one of the big benefits of SharePoint 2016 is that it is part of the unified code base from Office 365. Therefore, it reflects some of the management learning that Microsoft has gained in running SharePoint Online. One of those features that I know you've talked about in detail on last week's Tech Talk is a feature called MinRoll. For those people who are not familiar with MinRoll, first, can you give a real quick explanation of what MinRoll does? And then we've got some questions and some comments about MinRoll.
Yeah, sure. So if you think about what this concept we call MinRoll is in SharePoint, running it as a component of the service, we face the same challenge that our customers do. SharePoint, when you install it on a server, it lays down areas, and then the machine becomes whatever you dictate it to be, or its placement in the topology. So once SharePoint is installed, you can begin to provision out your SharePoint farm, leveraging psconfig or psconfig UI, or even by Windows PowerShell instrumentation. But at the end of the game, a machine is whatever you define it to be, either by the features that you opt to place on it, or by its placement in the topology. So for example, putting a server behind a load balancer would generally imply that that server is a web server, and it would respond to end user requests. However, there's nothing that differentiates that machine from a lower tier machine such as an application server. The only thing that differentiates one machine from another is the services and the service applications that are provisioned on that particular machine or its placement in the topology. And what we had on TechNet was guidance dedicated to how you could build out a server farm by leveraging a set of best practices. So we identified a set of discrete roles as part of TechNet documentation: a web front end, an application server, a caching server, or what we called batch processing, search servers, and we had guidance on each of those particular machines and what you should deploy on them and how you should optimize them. And we struggled with that same challenge as we deployed SharePoint as a component of Office 365 through SharePoint Online. So really what we tried to figure out is how do we reduce the sprawl of SharePoint within our own data centers, but yet optimize it in a way that provides a more role-based and efficient means of unit scaling. So what MinRoll does now is we've predefined a set of roles for you to be able to leverage with SharePoint 2016. So you install SharePoint as you would in the past, and then when you configure SharePoint, we prompt you to specify a particular role to associate with that server. And we have a number of different out-of-the-box roles that you can select from. We have a web front-end role, or what we call a front-end role, that's optimized for low latency. So we've optimized that particular role for low latency. We have an application server role that we've optimized for high throughput. We have a caching server role that we've optimized for performance. We have a search role that provides all of the search services. And then lastly, we have what we call a special load role. Special load roles are when you need isolation of services. So if you have a service that you want to isolate, such as a third-party application or performance point, the specialized role will enable you to do that. And then for those looking for development or evaluation environments or perhaps proof of concepts, we also have a new single server role. The benefit of these is we've optimized the code paths for each specific role. So we've taken the guesswork out of trying to figure out what services should run on a particular role. How should I optimize that role? We've taken all of that guesswork out. From a scaling perspective, by leveraging role-based scaling, you can scale more efficiently, and at the same time, again, it reduces your data center footprint. And then what we've also introduced as part of these roles is monitoring of those roles as well. So now we have compliance monitoring associated with each independent role. So as a role is provisioned, you can actually determine whether or not it's in compliance with what that role is intended to be. So if you have a web front-end role and a rogue admin opts to provision a search service on that role, compliance reports will notify you of such, and you can actually programmatically fix it now. As we talked about at the last week's Tech Talk and demonstrated that you can resolve those issues programmatically as a role falls out of compliance.
Fantastic. And if someone is looking at Mineral as an option, there was a couple of questions here. Are there any ramifications on licensing, for example? Richard is asking, in the new model, he heard that you need to pick a certain role. Will this model require more licensing per farm?
No, I think, one of the things is the easy answer to that question is today, where we're at from a product perspective, we're just not in a position yet to talk about licensing and packaging. We haven't gotten to that point from a product perspective so far, but it doesn't necessarily impact, anything about how you deploy SharePoint. You deploy SharePoint in the same way. It's just that we've optimized code paths for specific roles. So instead of you trying to figure out, okay, this is a web front end and I want to achieve a certain amount of RPS, in the past you installed SharePoint and it was this agnostic thing. And then you provisioned the foundation web application on it. You provisioned a number of other services. You put it behind your load balancer, and all of a sudden it became your web front end. But really, the only thing that separated that machine from, say, a machine that was running Excel calculation services is that Excel calculation services wasn't running on the front end. So there was really nothing that separated two machines other than the services that ran on those machines. And now with MinRole, they've been optimized for those specific roles. So it doesn't necessarily change anything from the way you think about deploying SharePoint as much as we've optimized those roles for you. So today, if you have 2 front ends, 2 application servers, 2 caching servers, and those are just identified by their placement in the topology and what services you have running on them, tomorrow it'll be 2 front ends, 2 application servers, and 2 caching servers. The difference being that we've optimized the roles for you from a code perspective, so we've turned all the guidance into code. And then the other thing that we've done is we've given you some compliance reports around it, so you can always achieve a consistent level of reliability. So it's really coming back to that cloud-inspired infrastructure and what we've been able to determine, works extremely well at scale. And then, stuff like MinRole leads you to other investments like zero downtime patching. Now, while there's not affinity between those two, as you begin to combine those, you end up with a more resilient platform than you've ever had in the past with SharePoint.
Awesome. So that actually dovetails nicely with a question I prepared, which is, are there significant changes to the infrastructure typo requirements for SharePoint 2016? It sounds like the same basic architectural rules apply, but that you've optimized them, as you say. You've mentioned already that SharePoint 2016 will support the newest versions of SQL and Windows Server. Are there any other major changes that we should have in our sites for what our farms might look like in 2016?
Yeah, I think, from looking at SharePoint 2016, it's not something that we necessarily really wanted to change the infrastructure. And it's been relatively historic of how we've moved from version to version with SharePoint. So you can think back to 2003 when we had this monolithic profile database that basically provided any kind of social service that you wanted to implement as part of that product. As we moved into 2007, we moved into the shared service provider world, or SSP. So we really changed the infrastructure, the architecture of the infrastructure substantially between 2003 and 2007. As we moved into 2010, we changed it yet again, and we introduced the concept of shared service applications. So we went from a profile database to a shared service provider to a service application model. And one of the things that we realized is the service application model actually works really well. You can delegate access to manage particular service applications. You can deploy and extend service applications very easily and very rapidly, whether you're publishing out services across farms or whether or not you're just introducing new services to an existing farm. We found that that model actually works really well. And it's also very extensible, not only for third parties, but also for us. So if you think about the 2010 shared services, we introduced a whole new slew of shared services in 2013, stuff like machine translation services, PowerPoint automation services. So it's really been easy for us to add value to SharePoint through the new shared services model as well. As we move into 2016, we're going to retain that same idea of a shared services model. So we generally don't want to change the infrastructure. We really want to make this release about the ability to get you there rapidly and in a way that reduces the amount of pain getting there. So from an upgrade perspective, we've definitely thought about that as well. And because the genesis of SharePoint Online was founded in SharePoint 2013, and the genesis of SharePoint 2016 was founded in SharePoint Online, effectively you can trace SharePoint 2016 and SharePoint Online's DNA back to SharePoint 2013. So again, as you think about cloud-ready upgrades, that's why SharePoint 2013 puts you in an excellent position, whether you're looking to move to Office 365 as a wholesale proposition or through hybrid, or you're looking to move to SharePoint 2016 to take advantage of new experiences. Because we've found a common foundation or common DNA for all of these products now, because we have that consistent code base and we've done the work of convergence, you actually get a platform now that makes it easier to upgrade to and more sustainable. That's also intuitive in that those familiar experiences are pervasive across the product now. So, you know, you won't expect to see these largely differentiating experiences across the infrastructure or just across, you know, the way your users work with information as well. So we really tried to make it as consistent as possible and then bring all of that value back to our on-prem customers.
Fantastic. And just to put one final button on the question of MinRoll, there have been some discussions and questions by Richard particularly that boil down to what I think I can restate and summarize, and that is for organizations that can't afford large farms, that don't necessarily have enough budget for 2 front ends, 2 application servers, 2 caching servers, 2 search servers, and that might be consolidating roles onto a smaller number of servers. You're still fully supporting those architectures, correct? And it's just going to be a matter of building those with the special role in MinRoll.
Oh, definitely. So MinRoll isn't designed, you know, for the largest of farms. So we didn't explicitly design it to where only our largest enterprise customers, you know, with 15, 20, 25 machines can take advantage of it. MinRoll can actually be taken advantage of in the smallest of farms where you have 1 server, or even as you scale into mid-sized farms to where you have 2, 3, 4, 5 servers. So, you know, basically the work that we've done is work around optimization and just making it more predictable and reliable, as well as being more performant, and at the same time being more resilient. But it doesn't change anything as related to smaller scale farms as well. So if you wanted a single server farm, we have a role for single server farms. I think the key thing to think about that specific role is while it's labeled single server farm, it doesn't imply that it can only be a single server attached to a single SQL server. You can actually have 2 single server farm machines. You can leverage the specialized load role, which is a role that's not monitored by MinRoll compliance, that you can leverage if you do want the traditional extensibility or the traditional ability to take a machine and turn it into whatever you want it to be. So, you know, we haven't really taken away anything from the way you used to deploy SharePoint in 2013 or even 2010. We've just optimized things to make it more efficient for you to take advantage of SharePoint.
Fantastic. All right, and moving on to some other questions related to SharePoint 2016 on-prem, and then we'll move on to the Office 365 questions as well. Will there be changes to database scalability in SharePoint 2016? Will we be able to store more documents in a library, more quantity in a content database? What is the expectation there?
Yeah, and that's actually another good one, because when we think about that cloud-inspired infrastructure that we talk about, or even cloud-inspired experiences, again, it's all about accruing the value and the experience that we've had running SharePoint at scale back to our on-premises customers. Because we've been able to do that, we've been able to relax a number of different boundaries, like we talked about at Ignite, which effectively means, you know, taking a content database and filling it with 100,000 site collections versus a limit of 20,000 that you experienced in the past, or scaling content databases into the terabytes as opposed to measuring them in gigabytes. You know, looking at things like the 5,000 item list view threshold and doing work to resolve that particular issue, which is another, you know, piece of work that we're doing to try to relax some of those boundaries as well. So 10 gig file upload. So moving away from that 2 gigabyte boundary up to a 10 gigabyte boundary for document upload. So really, bringing the storage levels much higher as they exist in the past. So really the ability to scale without scaling horizontally. So the way to think about SharePoint is all of the scale work that we've done is designed to enable you to scale vertically as opposed to scaling horizontally. Scaling horizontally is what's led to sprawl, to where you have a farm that started out as 5 machines and over the course of 3 to 5 to 10 years has sprawled to 15 to 20 to 25 machines. Now obviously that makes a number of different things more challenging for IT and developers. You're dealing with a much broader farm that encompasses a much larger footprint that's much less predictable to manage because you just have so many machines as a component of your topology. So patching becomes challenging. Day-to-day operations become challenging. High availability, disaster recovery. Effectively, horizontal scale leads to complexity. Our goal of 2016 is to reduce horizontal scale and improve vertical scale. And improving vertical scale is really one of those investments is Mineral, the ability to reduce the data center footprint and scale in a way that enables you to scale from a unit-based perspective, so unit scale in the sense of vertical scale, in addition to extending our boundaries to enable more vertical scale as well. So now putting more sites, putting more content into a content database, putting more information into a singular list allows you to scale vertically as opposed to scaling horizontally. So you're dealing with less lists, less databases, less fragmented files because we'll support larger files. So there's a number of different key innovations that we're making across scalability.
Awesome. And there were a couple of questions on features, so let's jump to that for a moment based on what people were chatting about. One question is related to administration logs. Is there a plan to provide better or richer experience with the logs that will help us support our users? So for example, if the user gets an ID, we're able to respond to that user quickly and help them understand what went wrong and remediate the problem.
Yeah, that's great, because one of the things that we talked about at Ignite and we did a brief demonstration is representative, again, of our experience running SharePoint at scale, and we call it telemetry. So, as a telemetry investment in Office 365, the investments that we've made there, it allows us operationally to figure out how SharePoint is performing. And it also enables us to look at usage as well. So what particular features are being most utilized by our customers? Where and when is that feature failing? How frequently does that feature generate an error versus another feature or another related or not even related feature? So we're really able to do telemetry and analytics all in one bucket to figure out things about how are users using the product. Do users use the upload button more than they use drag and drop? Do users use this web part more than they use that web part? What's the frequency of failure when users interact with this particular feature in SharePoint? So we're able to understand all of those things through a unique new logging API that we introduced into the service as a component of SharePoint Online. And that's going to be, representative, again, of an investment that accrues back to our on-premises customers. So you'll have more advanced telemetry and more insight, not only operationally into how your environment's performing, but also what are your users doing within your environment itself. So what is that frequency of failure? What particular features are resonating better than other features? So that also helps drive adoption. You can use it for a number of different things. If you determine that a given feature is more utilized than another, then you can either determine whether or not there's a challenge with that feature. Perhaps that feature is failing at a certain degree of frequency, and then correlate that perhaps to a new update that may resolve the issue. So you have more insight into what's failing, which means you have more insight into which updates will actually be most beneficial to your environment. So you're not just blindly moving down a cumulative update model, hoping to stay current or hoping it fixes something. You'll actually be able to better realize whether or not a cumulative update adds value to your existing deployment. But at the same time, from an adoption perspective, you can try to determine or understand why your users are using a given feature more than another, and then optimize, that use case scenario. Or you could also look at the features that aren't being used and figure out why, and then try to determine an adoption plan around how to get your users to start leveraging those capabilities. So there's a number of different ways that you can leverage it. You can almost think of it as A/B testing on-prem to a certain extent.
And Bill, will these features get past some of the limits that people have had in the past? Teresa's asking, for example, about the limit in usage reporting in SharePoint 2010 that keeps only 30 days of data. Will we have a longer-term view over what's happening in our organization?
Yeah, so from a view perspective, some of the logging work that we're implementing as a component of this release and some of the things that we're working on, we really haven't gotten to that point to where we can, say, oh, well, you'll be able to keep 6 months worth or, longer. But I think, it's one of the things that we're looking at. It's just not something that we have a clear beat on. First we have to build it, and then we can determine what its boundaries look like. And that's indicative of any of the things that we're building today is, we're very early still in the product development lifecycle. We have a long way to go before we, ship SharePoint 2016. And the first thing that we have to do before we can start thinking about some of the boundaries around specific or discrete features is having a stabilized build. So we have to get to a point to where, we have a stable build, and that's the build through which we can do the scale testing to determine what the actual boundaries are. So, today, we're working with very early builds of the product. If we did our scale testing today, it wouldn't be indicative of the product that we release a year from now. It would be indicative of a beta product. So really what we generally try to do is hold off a lot of the scalability testing until we get to a point to where the product's going to be more representative of what our customers will be deploying. And that's generally,
Awesome.
the RC timeframe.
And I assume you have just answered a question that Ginny had, which is, are any of these new features and capabilities, for example, the new logging capabilities currently available in Office 365? Sounds to me like they're not quite yet.
Yep.
Awesome. And as we start moving towards these new platforms, there were a couple of questions about migration. So let me hit both the migration to SharePoint 2016, and then we'll switch to migration to Office 365. What is the migration path to SharePoint 2016? Are there any major new capabilities, features, or things we need to be considering as we look ahead towards that migration?
Yeah, so getting to 2016 there's going to be two primary methodologies through which you can get to 2016. One is through upgrade and one is through migration. From an upgrade perspective, you have to be on 2013 in order to move to 2016. So we're going to support what we call an N-1 upgrade. So effectively, you can move from the current in-market product to SharePoint 2016. So from 2013 to 2016. You also have to bring all of your site collections up to what we call 15 mode. So if you recall in SharePoint 2013, we introduced this concept of deferred site collection upgrade, which meant that you could run site collections in a backward compatible, what we called 14 mode, or SharePoint 2010 mode. In order to get to 2016, you have to be on 2013, and then any site collections that are in 14 mode have to be brought to 15 mode. So that's the upgrade path. On the migration side, now obviously you can leverage data migration.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was done.
Oh, data migration using third-party tools, you mean?
Absolutely.
Okay. And will SharePoint 2016 have a similar mode where sites can run in a legacy 15 user experience before they get upgraded to a 16 user experience?
I think that's probably one of the more interesting aspects of SharePoint 2016 is that if you go back to the conversation a little earlier and you think about the genesis of SharePoint 2016 and the genesis of SharePoint Online, all of those being found in SharePoint 2013, you won't find that the UX from a differentiation perspective is going to be substantially appreciable as compared to previous upgrades. So as you think about 2010 to 2013, there was obviously, I wouldn't say benign, but there was a change to the user experience from 2007, for example, to 2010. I think what you'll find with 2013 is we really wanted to keep it intuitive, but at the same time keep it familiar for those customers that are running 2013 today. So you won't necessarily have the need to run in a backward compatible mode because the UX itself isn't going to change to a substantial extent to where it'll cause challenges for your users.
Awesome. And what about Office 365? What kinds of migration paths are in consideration or in the books or on the plans, I should say, for helping us get workloads that are currently on-prem into Office 365 if we do choose to fully take advantage of Office 365 capabilities for those workloads?
Yeah, so for Office 365, we've been making a number of investments to help our customers who are taking the journey with us and who are really ready to move to the cloud, whether it's just a workload or whether they're looking to move, the scope of the workloads that they have on-prem to Office 365. We've done a number of different things. Most recently, we've introduced a new migration pipeline that substantially increases performance of migration in addition to overall resiliency. And we have a number of different partners that are taking advantage of this new pipeline and the APIs that are a resultant set of this new pipeline. So we're really making it easier for you to get there from a performance and reliability perspective when you think about it through the lens of data migration through our new migration pipeline investments. And we have a video on our Channel 9 Ignite site that you can look at to learn more about that new migration pipeline and some of the performance enhancements and reliability enhancements that you'll see as a result of those. Again, we have a number of partners as well that are taking opportunities today leveraging this new pipeline. In addition, we'll also be shipping in the future ways for customers to take advantage of the new pipeline on their own, absent a third-party platform. And then if you're really looking for the best support to get to Office 365, whether it's a workload or whether it's the scope of your workloads, I would definitely encourage you to search for our Fast Track offering. So we have a deployment and adoption offer that can really help you move forward and with Office 365 that we support. So effectively, we'll help you through data migration, whether it's Exchange or SharePoint, OneDrive for Business. So we have a deployment and adoption offer through Fast Track that you can find online. And then in addition to that, we also have new investments that we're making from a migration perspective. So we're trying to do a number of different things in the sense of migration to help our customers achieve value in Office 365 very rapidly. But at the same time, again, we're also working on those hybrid investments. So if you can't take your business to the cloud, let us bring the cloud back to your business.
And on migration, there have been a couple of questions about migrating workflows, especially when people are using third-party products such as, let's say, a K2 or an Index. Is there any plan to incorporate migration of those kinds of third-party solutions, or is that really up to third-party migration tools and the third parties themselves to support that migration?
Yeah, typically you'll find that those type of scenarios where you're looking at something, if it's a third-party customization or, something like a forms and workflow customization that's a derivative of another product, we generally look to the provider of such to bring that forward, whether it's a migration from version to version or a migration from on-prem to cloud. But we generally look in that direction because they have the most familiarity with their own code base in terms of bringing those capabilities forward.
Awesome. And I know we could talk a lot more about features and capabilities, and there are, in fact, some more questions about that. But I'd like to take a moment to make sure that we touch on something that's very important to IT pros, which is how to manage change. There's obviously a lot of rapid innovation happening in the cloud. There's a lot that's coming to SharePoint 2016 on-prem. And I'd like to touch on some of the pillars of change management that are available to help organizations stay on top of, stay in front of, and test and deploy change effectively. So broadly speaking, what are some of the things that organizations can do to manage change, both with Office 365 and SharePoint 2016?
I think as with anything, the key to effective change management is really the reduction of complexity. That's the way that I always look at it. And complexity is generally driven by not having a plan up front. So many people will, if you think about it, just look at the on-premises model with SharePoint, where features weren't necessarily rolled out to business users based on those business users' needs or even based on the business needs. They were effectively just rolled out because they were lit up as part of the deployment. And I've seen, so many SharePoint implementations where Performance Point Services is there, and there's really no given business need for that particular service to be leveraged by any of the users themselves. So I really look at change management as one, reduce complexity, and two, understand exactly what are your business users' needs. What are their day-to-day functions? If 90% of the day-to-day function of your business users is just creating IP and core collaboration, then they don't necessarily need in-place records management as a capability being delivered to them, whether it's delivered through Office 365 or through SharePoint. So it's really, in many cases, and it's also better for IT as well, because you tend to see, less escalation from a support perspective, because you're only bringing those capabilities that your users need back to you. So it's just about being predictive, it's about reducing complexity, and it's about introducing new concepts as they become necessary or over time.
Awesome. And as far as deciding how to align what the features of SharePoint and Office 365 offer with our business requirements and giving ourselves the ability to test new features, can you talk a little bit about one of the change management capabilities, which is first release?
Yep. So, for those customers, we have customers that are definitely early adopters who want the latest and greatest in technology. So they're a very dynamic, fast-moving organization, for example, that doesn't necessarily mind introducing new capabilities to their users at a very rapid pace, at a pace almost as rapid as which we develop them. So we have this concept that we call first release that enables you to take advantage of new capabilities before they become generally available. So if you look at just recently, we announced global availability of video or global availability of the Office Graph and Delve. But for those customers in first release, they've always had those capabilities available to them. So effectively, they've become early adopters. If you think about the way that we've always talked here at Microsoft, we've had this concept of what we call dog fooding, which was really bringing early versions of the product back to our users' desktops. So it may be running Windows 10 today, across the organization, or just taking advantage of new technologies as they're being developed is what we call dog fooding internally. You can think of that same concept as it exposes or manifests itself in Office 365 as first release. It's effectively you subscribing to dog food capabilities before they become generally available. So as we continue to iterate on them, you'll have them available to you. And it's a great way if you want to stay on top of technology and your users are dynamic in that new innovation doesn't necessarily distract or disrupt them from their day-to-day jobs. It's a great way to bring innovation to your users at a very rapid cadence, and then it prepares them for the future as those capabilities become generally available. So, there's a number of different things that you can do with first release. It could just be experimental, to where you just want to see what's coming as we move forward, and you want to see a product that's iterated upon over time, or you can just leverage it to bring innovation to your organization at a very rapid cadence. So there's a number of different things that you can do, with first release. Now, obviously, you have organizations that are more structured, where the rate of change isn't necessarily something that would be beneficial to the users. Perhaps it's perceived as disruptive or for users. Now, you can definitely, first release is an opt-in model. When you subscribe to Office 365, you are not opted in. You have to actually go in and then opt in for first release. So there's a number of different things that you can use first release for dog fooding capabilities. If you have a test tenant, you can leverage it there to garner an idea of what may be coming at a given point in the future. But there's just a number of ways you can do it. It's an exciting capability, particularly for those who are innovative that want to see things at a very rapid pace.
And just to clarify, you mentioned it's an opt-in. For those of you who are on the session, it's a setting in the admin console of Office 365. You can turn on first release. Now, Bill, one of the challenges organizations have traditionally had with something even like first release is they might need to test the feature with a limited set of users but with production data as opposed to a test tenancy. I know there were some announcements made at Ignite about how we're going to be able to test features with a more limited scope of users rather than just everyone's on first release or everyone's not on first release. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. If you think about first release today, it's generally a broad action, which means it's enabling first release brings those capabilities to all of your users within your tenancy. And we definitely heard the feedback that the capabilities, our customers would find it beneficial to test these capabilities to really enable first release against a production environment. But at the same time, what they want to be able to do is limit the scope of first release to an explicit set of users. So as opposed to applying first release to their broader organization, really identifying a set of users to which first release may be appropriate. And perhaps that's to IT. So IT can begin to develop knowledge around a particular capability, and through the development of that knowledge, they can produce IP that's intended for consumption by the end users. So really, it's a more staggered approach to first release, the ability to selectively determine who receives capabilities in advance and who shouldn't. So one of the things that we talked about at Ignite to bringing to first release is the ability to limit exposure of first release to a subset of your audience, to identify a set of individuals to which first release would be appropriate. So that's kind of one of the great new innovations that you'll be finding as part of first release, is the ability to scope it to a set of users. So perhaps you have a legal department where first release is disruptive, so you don't want to turn it on today. As we move forward, you'd actually be able to turn it on, say, for your IT organization, again, so they can develop experience with the new technology while excluding your legal department from first release. And what that effectively enables you to do, if you think about it, is it's really basically a staged rollout.
That's awesome, and I think we all need to give Microsoft a huge hand for that one, because that's a huge capability for customers. That's fantastic. And now let's turn our attention, we've got about 10 minutes left, to some of the key features that people are interested in. We've had some questions including extranet collaboration and the ability to share externally, which is currently possible in Office 365. I believe there's some improvements coming to Office 365 as well as potentially to on-prem. Bill, do you want to talk about those?
Yep. So, when we talk about our hybrid story, one of the things that we've been talking about quite a bit over the past 12 to 18 months is really innovating in this new hybrid world. And unfortunately, hybrid's become such an overloaded term, it's hard to understand exactly what it means. So, hybrid, again, used to mean data migration. It basically used to mean, how do I connect two related environments in order to provide my users that single pane of glass? And search was representative of one of those early hybrid investments. As we moved forward and thought about hybrid, one, we looked at hybrid as how do you enhance existing on-premises innovation with cloud innovation, or experiences with cloud innovation. So it's really, how do I bring the benefits of the cloud back to my organization without having to go through data migration? And that's where the new hybrid experiences come from. So it's effectively cloud down as opposed to on-prem up. But hybrid also now means cloud to cloud. So we're really looking at hybrid more broadly than its previous definition, which was really affinity between one on-prem farm and one tenant. That's really what hybrid was. It was establishing affinity between one tenant and one on-prem farm. As we think about hybrid moving forward, it's thinking about it in different ways, such as, why can't hybrid exist between two tenants? Why can't two tenants have a business-to-business relationship? And that's what we call hybrid extranet. So it's really developing this B2B relationship between two existing tenants. So, it goes beyond external sharing and really allows two tenants to participate in an extranet scenario together. And we definitely have a session on that from Ignite as well. It's called B2B external sharing. I would, recommend having a look at that session, because we heard loud and clear that a number of our customers in Office 365 have established extranets on premises, but now that they're making that transition to the cloud, they need to be able to collaborate with other partners that are in the cloud. So one of our more recent investments is really B2B extranets.
And that's fantastic. And for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to use Office 365 for an extranet, even in its current state, it's a phenomenal way to share with external users. I use it for IT Unity. I use it for a number of my customers. It's a great motivation for establishing even a small Office 365 tenancy for your environment. And Bill, there were some other questions, including some questions from Galen on document and records management. I know we've had some discussions about this in the past. What is what is your guidance when organizations have heavy need for document and records management, whether that's related to retention or metadata or what is currently done with content types? What's your guidance as far as putting those workloads on-prem versus in the cloud now and in the future?
Yeah, I think those questions. So if you think about in the past, really SharePoint Online and SharePoint on premises, there was a substantial gap that differentiated the two early on. And in many cases, customers were almost incentivized to stay on premises just because of the parity gap that existed between those two products, largely in the space of records management and enterprise content management. And you've probably noticed over the past 3 years that parity gap is effectively closing. When you start looking at the capabilities that are enabled through SharePoint Online versus those that are enabled through SharePoint On-Prem, you're going to find that list of features, as it may, are actually getting closer together. So you have a service that's more representative of all that on-prem capability now today. If you think about what it means to document and records management, it's going to be less defined by what features are available here and what features are available there, because we are drawing the parity gap closer. It's going to be all about the sensitivity of the type of content you're looking to manage. So from a feature perspective, you're effectively going to have document and records management capabilities across the board. The capabilities delivered through Office 365 are going to be the ones that are innovated on first. They're also going to be the ones that have great, enhanced security capabilities backing them as well. So Fort Knox encryption, customer lockbox. There's a number of different things from a data protection perspective that are going to exist in the cloud that you won't be able to find or reproduce on premises. But in addition to that, you'll also find what we call suite level capabilities. So something like unified compliance. In SharePoint, anything from a compliance perspective was explicitly designed largely for SharePoint on premises. When you think about stuff like unified compliance in Office 365, it's a suite level investment, which means you get differentiating experiences. So again, document fingerprinting is something that exists in Office 365 that you don't have available to you on premises. Item level encryption is another great example of cloud innovation that doesn't exist on premises. Or some of the enhanced reporting and analytics the compliance console provides are things that aren't provided on premises. So really the way to think about it is, one, what is the sensitivity of my content? Where do I want to maintain it? Am I regulated to the extent that I can't move this content to the cloud? Then obviously the best candidate for that information is on premises. But if it's information that you've already researched corporate and regulatory compliance, and the information is acceptable to be placed in the cloud, and you've looked at the Office 365 Trust Center, and you see the policies that you need to adhere to are policies through which we support, then definitely bring that information to Office 365. Or lastly, your third option is, hey, I want to maintain my content on premises because I'm not quite sure if I am in, or what regulations my specific industry or business falls under. So I'm going to maintain it on-prem because I'm unsure, or because I don't have the resources available to do the research to figure out where that information should be. A great way to think about that is we're investing in hybrid data loss prevention experiences. So those things that you're seeing in Office 365 that you're wishing you could take advantage of on-prem, item level encryption, document fingerprinting, a unified compliance console, those are things that we'll be bringing to you through hybrid. So effectively, that's a great example of, hey, I can subscribe to all of the compliance and DLP capabilities using my on-prem content. So I don't have to move, I just have to subscribe to the capability. So that's a great example of one of those bringing the cloud to you as opposed to bringing you to the cloud.
Well, awesome, Bill. And you know what? I think we're heading towards the end of our session, so I'm going to set us up with the title slide here and start giving us an opportunity to wrap up. There are some amazing questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we only had an hour and a half to chat today. But we are lucky enough to be able to talk with Bill almost every other week on Friday with a web show we have on iTunity called Tech Talk with Bill Baer. And we will be putting the link to that up as we close the presentation today. So you can join us in a format very similar to this almost every other Friday. Bill joins us. We're now being joined by special guests, and we tackle specific topics very much like we have today, but with an entire half hour dedicated to that topic. I saw a lot of interest in looking at cloud security as a topic, issues of privacy and compliance. So I think that will be a topic coming up. And I believe, Bill, the next show we're going to be doing is going to be looking at hybrid, right?
Yeah, so the next show we're going to be doing is looking at the new cloud search service. There's been last week we discussed MinRoll. I definitely invite you to take a look at that particular tech talk because it does answer a lot of the questions that I've seen so far in the chat surrounding MinRoll. One of the other things that's tended to come up most recently is what does this new hybrid search service look like? What information gets stored in the cloud? How does it meet my data security and compliance needs? So we'll have a special session on that at the next Tech Talk to help you there. I'm looking at some of the questions in the chat. There was a number of different questions here. I'm hoping perhaps I can take into the next Tech Talk as well to help answer those. But, you know, in conclusion, the way that I would think about it, the moral of the story is that we're going to continue to invest in our on-premises servers on our traditional release cadence of 2 to 3 years. We're going to continue to invest in SharePoint Online and Office 365 on a very rapid release cadence, but we're going to continue to try to bring those two things closer together through hybrids. So, you know, obviously from an on-prem perspective, we can't ship a service pack every week and innovate, you know, at that cadence. And to that extent, nobody would deploy a service pack on a weekly basis to take advantage of new innovation. So, you know, to try to meet in the middle and find a way to give our customers the best of both worlds, we've redefined what hybrid is. We've really looked at on-premises as being a container for a set of features and online as being a container that features or experiences are derived from, and then looking at hybrid to connect features with experiences. So really trying to bring the two worlds together for our customers. And the last thing I wanted to say, because he definitely deserves it, is Bob Fox joined us today on the chat and has done an excellent job of answering questions, and we couldn't have done it without you. So awesome for you to be here and take time out of your day to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And Bill, thank you. And you know what I hear from you is fantastic, and I applaud what Microsoft has done. And I think what it means for us as customers of Microsoft is first, we need to continue giving Microsoft our feedback. Microsoft more than ever is actively listening and acting on our feedback. So use user voice, pay attention to the roadmap, join the Office 365 Yammer network, reach out and get involved so that Microsoft hears your voice. And also, a lot of the onus is on us as customers as well. We need to stay on top of changes. We need to take advantage of capabilities like first release to test features and understand how they can benefit our organizations. And we also need to become more focused on helping our organization address its needs, not with platforms, but with services, with use cases, and looking at our organization's needs as a series of workloads rather than as a monolithic problem that has to be solved with a single platform. And that will allow us to move more thoughtfully from a current on-prem hybrid or on-prem monolithic platform into a hybrid environment that takes advantage of the right features from the right place, whether that's in the cloud or on-prem. So hopefully this gave us a glimpse into the future of Office and SharePoint 360, Office 365, SharePoint, and the IT Pro. There's a lot more to say as the event progresses, so please do enjoy the rest of your experience here at Unity Connect Online. Keep an eye on the agenda. We're likely to add some surprise sessions as the event goes on. And once again, Bill and Bob, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy day at Microsoft to share your insight with us.
Thanks, Dan.